Hello everyone, welcome to the 100 Literary and Jury Charge. I'm going to start off reading you a fun fact, and this is called Your Tax Dollars at Work. Ready? The U.S. Post Office once spent $3.4 million on an advertising campaign trying to make Americans write more pen and paper letters. Then they spent another $775,000 to see if the ads were working. The Environmental Protection Agency spent $1.2 million to preserve a Trenton, New Jersey sewer as a historical monument. The U.S. Air Force spent $59,000 to print up playing cards given as souvenirs to visitors who got to ride aboard Air Force Two, the vice presidential plane. And here's a fun fact. In Maine, buildings made of round logs are tax exempt. All right, moving right into a witness's answer. I'm going to read this once at 80 and then again at 100. Ready? I hit the ground. Then I went to stand up, but it felt as if somebody had stuck a knife in my back. I wanted to get away from the truck because it looked as if it was going to teeter and perhaps roll over again. It was sitting on its side and it was kind of moving. It looked as if it was going to come over on me. So I walked away a little bit. Then I just sat down, and that is where I stayed. I just sat there looking up at the bed of the truck and waited to be taken away. It wasn't too long until somebody got there. Okay, so I will read this again at 100. Ready? I hit the ground. Then I went to stand up, but it felt as if somebody had stuck a knife in my back. I wanted to get away from the truck because it looked as if it was going to teeter and perhaps roll over again. It was sitting on its side and it was kind of moving. It looked as if it was going to come over on me. So I walked away a little bit. Then I just sat down, and that is where I stayed. I just sat there looking up at the bed of the truck and waited to be taken away. It wasn't too long until somebody got there. Okay, we're going to finish off this article that I started in the last class, How Not to Lose Friends Over Money. All right. Here we go. Ready? Number 5. A friend invites you to participate in an activity that costs more than you can afford or want to spend. When my college roommate asked me to be maid of honor at her wedding. I was flattered, Leah recalls. My immediate response was, I'd love to. After I hung up, however, I began to realize how much expense was involved. The dress had to be specially made with new cowgirl boots to match, and the wedding was halfway across the country. My husband and I were saving to go to Europe, and I couldn't afford to do both. Leah decided to be honest. I called her back and explained the situation. She says, my roommate was hurt, of course, and I felt bad about that, but I'd have felt even worse if I'd sacrificed the trip I'd been looking forward to for so long. Not everyone I polled agreed with this approach. All thought Leah had been right to turn down the invitation, but some felt she could have done it more kindly. She might have said that previous plans made it impossible for her to attend the wedding, one person suggested. She didn't have to explain that the plans were for a trip to Europe. In Leah's place, I'd have tried to spare my friend's feelings by not mentioning that this milestone in her life was not nearly as important to me as it was to her. Number 6, you are asked to contribute toward a gift for someone you don't know well or don't like. Every week, it seems, says Candy, I'm asked to make a contribution toward another gift or a party to celebrate somebody's new baby, birthday, or retirement. I resent forking over money for people I hardly know, but how do you get out of doing it? Well, the best and simplest solution is just to say no. It doesn't sound that bad if you do it regretfully, one woman suggests. I wish I could contribute, I'd say, but it just isn't possible. Another friend handles this problem differently. If the honored person is somebody I'd be buying for anyway, she explains, I donate the amount I'd already have spent myself. If it's someone I know only slightly, I give just a few dollars as a token. What I don't do is apologize for my contribution or let myself be pressured into giving more than I feel is really appropriate. Number 7, a friend is able to spend far more or far less than you can. We don't choose friends on the basis of how much money they have, of course, but vast differences can be disturbing to both sides. Aaron, for example, is single and earns a very good salary. Her friend Carrie, a divorced mother of 3, is struggling to make ends meet. We're both theater buffs, Aaron explains, and I'd gladly pay for 2 tickets just to have Carrie's company at plays and concerts. but she won't go anywhere unless she can pay her own way. I hate to go alone, so we both stay home. It all seems so silly. Carrie sees the situation differently. After an unhappy marriage to a domineering man, she says, it's very important to me to carry my own weight. I'm not comfortable in any relationship where all I do is take. The issue was finally broken when Aaron moved recently. Carrie's children were with their father, so she took a picnic lunch to her friend's new place, then spent the day helping her unpack and get settled. I was so grateful, Aaron says, that I persuaded Carrie to let me return the favor in my own way, with season tickets to our little theater group. I think she is beginning to recognize that she contributes as much to our friendship as I do. Number 8, social pressure forces you to overspend. When you're out with a group, weird things can happen to common sense, says Valerie. For example, my husband and I often meet after work on Fridays at a club we belong to. We always run into people we know there, and inevitably, somebody snatches the bar tab and says, I'll get this round. You can get the next one. That seems fair on the surface, but a single beer is my husband's limit, and I drink club soda. More often than not, we find ourselves hosting a round of double martinis for casual acquaintances. After several such occasions, Valerie and her husband agreed to refuse to be shoved into picking up a round again. Now, when a second batch of drinks are ordered, we just insist, no more for us. Thank you, Valerie says. We don't make excuses or offer prolonged explanations. If the person who paid for the first round gets upset, that's his problem. Ours is solved. Number 9, a friend asks personal questions about your finances. Some people don't seem to mind being asked how much they earn or what they spend for their clothes, but I am offended by such questions, says Heather. To my way of thinking, our finances are nobody else's business. Yet, when we were first married, a nosy friend asked what my husband's salary was, and I was so startled I actually told her. In the years since, Heather has developed techniques for putting money snoops in their place. It's a state secret, she tells them, or I can't remember what I paid. Today, if someone is bold enough to ask about her husband's salary, she responds with questions of her own. Why do you care about that? Are you planning to apply for his job? A companion borrows money and forgets to repay it. Large loans are seldom the issue. They're usually treated as business transactions, with the terms spelled out on paper. But many women suffer in silence over problems like Trina's. My friend Allie is always short of cash, she says. I hate to recall how often I've loaned her $10 or $20 for drinks, food, and a movie. Each loan is so small, I'd feel really cheap making a big deal about it. Still, I do resent the fact that she never pays me back. Trina admits to being too inhibited or something to demand repayment, but she has resolved to stop giving money to Allie. The last time she asked for $20 to pay for her dry cleaning, I just told her I couldn't spare it. Another woman suggests a different approach. When somebody cops out on repaying a loan, I turn the tables by requesting one myself, she says. I left home without my wallet, I'll say. Can you lend me enough to cover lunch? Then, when the money is safely in hand, I am struck by a sudden realization. Why, this is exactly the amount I loaned you last week. How convenient. Now you won't have to repay me. It works like a charm. There's the really gutsy solution, too, in which we simply ask, straight out, in no-nonsense language, for what is rightfully ours. This, I've come to realize, is what I should have done with Olivia. If I were to run into her today, I think I would have the strength and character to step right up and say, I have an overwhelming desire for a Coke and a burger. How about giving me the cash I loaned you 40 years ago? If she did hand it over, I think I might forgive her and renew our friendship, despite the fact that you can no longer buy a Coke and a burger for $1. All right, moving right into opening statements. You are going to hear at 11:43 that morning, so sometime just before noon, Sabrina Helm makes that call, and that is recorded to Brian Stowe and Karen Watt's answering machine saying, I can come out. I will be out there sometime after 2 o'clock today. You are going to hear about the 2 stops she made before Stan Adams and Brian Stowe's residence. That is, she stops at the Rick Sands residence at about 1:30 in the afternoon, and sometime between 2 and 2:30, she stops at a woman by the name of Joanne Zip. Sabrina makes the similar kind of stops. She stops. She takes pictures of the cars. She gives them an Auto Trader magazine, a bill of sale. She completes the transaction before taking the photo for Auto Trader, and then she goes on to her next stop for that day. Well, her next stop that day was at the Stan Adams salvage property. You are going to hear at 2:27 p.m. a woman from Auto Trader, Dana Pleiska, talks to Sabrina Helm. You are going to hear that during that conversation, Ms. Helm says, I am on my way. I am on my way to the Daniel Mack property. So when we talk about a timeline, when was she there? About when does she get there? You are going to hear that the zip residence is less than 10 minutes from the Mack property. And if at 2:27 she says, I am on my way, it can be no longer or later than 3:27 or about 3:40. Excuse me, 2:27 or about 2:40 in the afternoon, or 20 minutes to 3, that Sabrina Helm gets to Stan Adams' property where the photos are supposed to be taken. You will hear evidence that she completes the actual transaction. She takes the photos of the van just like she has been asked to do. You will then hear in, unfortunately, graphic detail what happens to Sabrina Helm after 2:40 in the afternoon. Okay, that concludes our literary and jury charge for the 100 class. Have a great day.